Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Kyle Bush, who is the founder and CEO of Cumberland Creative. Looking forward to hearing his story. Kyle, why don't you first just kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump in from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. But yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Kyle Bush. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Cumberland Creative. We are a 50 plus award-winning video production shop that also does digital marketing. So we can make the content and help the right people see it and drive revenue. I'm married for 8 years now to my high school sweetheart. I have two small children that are very precious and adorable. I have a 21-month-old boy named Luca and then a 8-month-old girl named Ruby. So
Nice.
That's pretty much me summed up.
Sound like you got a busy life right now.
Yeah.
So you started your business, what, 7 or 8 years ago? Is that correct?
Yeah. So I started right as I was finishing up college. We launched in very early 2017, January 2nd.
Wow. Okay. So, that's also interesting because, most people take the conservative route out of college. They go find a job somewhere, get some experience. You jumped straight into business ownership from the start. What made you think that way? Is that something from your upbringing or what?
I have no idea. I'm probably because I'm insane. Um, I wish I could say it was like a super intentional thing. I do think looking back at my upbringing, my childhood, there's lots of like kind of traditional entrepreneur oriented stories I can point to, whether it was, making duct tape wallets and selling them around the neighborhood. At one point I started a mushroom farm. And then at another point I was doing, like skate videos for friends, and then we were charging them money to make them skate videos, and we would do like some merch and stuff like that. We were selling a lot of t-shirts and stuff. So there was a lot of business oriented things, but I'd never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to go into the Navy after high school, and then I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist, and I really was not thinking about it. Was never on my mind I'm going to start a business, honestly. And it wasn't until right before I was graduating school, my business partner and I were working at another video company. Um, and we just kind of saw the writing on the wall there that it wasn't the way we wanted to serve clients. And also, we didn't really believe in the functional plan for the business. And so the way that we felt at the time was like, we can go down with this ship, or we can, at that time I was 22, my business partner was 21. We lived in an apartment with like 6 dudes in it. And, I think our rent was like $300 a month, and it's like, we have nothing to lose. Like, why don't we just try?
Yeah.
Like, we were fortunate though, in that we knew we could do the work because we were already doing it at another company where I was, ideating, connecting with people, selling the work, and then kind of account managing it and creative directing it. My business partner was directing it, shooting it, editing it. And so we had a little bit of a cheat code, which was like, we knew that we could service it and we kind of knew how to price it, and we knew we could do the work. So we jumped off, and it just kind of happened. Honestly, it was not like a super robust plan. And I think that's a blessing. I think that it would be really easy to get stuck overthinking what kind of business you wanted to start.
Yeah. Yeah. I had some friends that started a video business around that same time, and COVID came along and really impacted them, just in particular state they were in. Was that that was what, 3 years, 2 to 3 years in your business? Were you well enough established that it didn't have a big impact, or was it as painful on you as it was many of us?
It was scary, but we were very fortunate. We had a big dip for about 2 months,
Yeah.
and then things picked up for us because once people realized, like, we had a lot of shoots get canceled, a lot of things pause. But then once everybody realized the world wasn't going to end, and that they needed more digital presence than ever, things actually picked up for us. And so we were super fortunate and blessed in that regard.
Mhm.
And then also we did a pretty good job at making sure we ran a smart business. Like we didn't have debt. We had a lot of money saved up to make
Mhm.
sure that we could weather something. It's also, I'd like to say it's good business strategy. It's also just some sometimes borderline paranoid. And so we stockpiled a little bit more than
Yeah.
maybe we even should, but
No, that's a key strategy. So many business failures in that first year are because people don't have a long enough, I always call it the runway. You gotta have a long enough runway to get your plane off the ground. And if you don't have enough stored aside or whatever, you're going to be in trouble.
yeah.
Could very well be. So so what was the key to that early success? When did you feel you y'all had it, I don't say figured out, but that you got past that initial fear stage that I think every business owner struggles with initially?
It's a great question. I feel like we were really fortunate how young and kind of naive we were, because we didn't really think about it that hard the first, I would say, 2 or 3 years. And we didn't need much money to survive then. So our first year we did like 200K, and then we did 400K, and then we did 800K. Um, but I would say probably when I felt like we had a real business was around middle of 2018. So about a year and a half in, we
Mhm.
had one big client we were doing a lot of work for in the CrossFit space, and we like had landed a retainer, and we were able to like put ourselves on salaries for the first time. And so we
Right.
started doing that. And then at that same time, we worked with just legendary entrepreneur, an amazing person, a guy named Mark Stoner here in Nashville. He owns a company called Ashbusters Chimney Service.
Mm.
And we did some work with him. I was in a BNI group. I don't know if you've ever done BNI, but it's
I, Yeah, I do. I saw, in fact, I saw we were both connected to Clay Morgan. I know Clay pretty well.
yep. And so I did
He's in Nashville.
yeah, I did BNI for a while, and that's how I got connected to Mark. But
Yeah.
we did what's now still called our pillar package. And it's basically the 5 most essential videos for every business. It's a who we are video, about 90 seconds. It's like your story summed up. Like, who are you?
Mhm.
What do you do? Why do you do it? Boom, like your elevator pitch to
Right.
perfection.
Yeah.
And then usually it's a company culture slash recruiting video. So a video that, you can really use, especially in the blue collar world, like Ashbusters. They have a really difficult time recruiting talent and showing potential
Mhm.
talent. Like, hey, this is a real job where you can make real money.
Right.
So we did that. And then it's typically 3 other videos, which are usually 30 to 60 seconds. And they're usually service lines or
Mhm.
testimonial or ads. Right. And
Right.
so we did that package with him, and he was telling us, like, when we did it, he saw the videos, he loved them. He was like blown away. He's like, I've never seen anything like this, which was awesome for us to hear. But he was like, you're going to get a lot of calls when I put these live. And we kind of like smirked at him because like people say that all the time. Usually it's followed by asking for a discount. But this time it
Of
wasn't.
course.
He was just like, I think you're going to get a lot of traction when these go live. And we're like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. And then sure enough, he posted the videos, and we had like, I think literally within an hour and then within a few days, especially, we had about a dozen chimney companies calling us saying like, I
Oh,
want
wow.
the Mark Stoner package. And so that became our pillar package. And that's whenever it's like we went from really like eating what we're gonna kill and like always on the hunt and trying to figure out what's the next job to, okay, we have jobs booked out for 6 months, and we're kind of like we're putting a lot of these companies on retainers. We're making one video a month for them to help them market with the seasonality of their business. And so 2018, 2019 is when I really started to feel like we got a business, like we're hiring
Yeah.
employees, we have repeatable revenue coming in. And so that was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. That 18-month mark seems to be consistent. I mean, I don't know, 8 out of 10 seems like to be that's the, if they make it, that's that pivotal point where they're starting to go, yeah, this is going to work. I'm going to make,
Yep.
in fact, it was 18 months for me almost to the day, that I went, okay, of course, that was then COVID hit like 2 months later
Yep.
and set it back a little bit. But yeah, that's
Yep.
so true. So you're in Nashville, Tennessee, the
Yep.
entertainment capital of the East. Actually, some might say the world these days. It
Yeah.
seems to be
Yeah.
on fire. Does is that a big impact for you? I mean, do you work a lot in with the entertainment industry, or are you more business focused?
Yeah, we're more business focused. We've done a few music videos and we've done a few hospitality things, but
Okay.
not too much. We enjoy it. It's not something that's ever been like a core piece for us. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Nashville growing definitely helped us a little bit. But we
Right.
do work all over the entire country. And so we wish we had more local Nashville based clients, but the reality is probably 65, 70% of our work we're getting on an airplane to do.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. So people are hiring you. I mean, there are video production companies all over the place, but you're being sought out. But what is it that sets you apart from all those other video uh, companies that are around the nation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that part of it is our real people, real story chops.
Mm.
So our authentic storytelling capabilities are very strong. So people who need that type of video, like one of our clients, Toast, for an example, one of our favorite clients, we love them. They're, if you go in a restaurant, most of the time the POS system is Toast.
Yeah.
And so for them, for example, they have clients all over the country who they want to tell stories about how their business helped them. And
Mm.
so what we have done and for them and what we do for a lot of people is we go all over the country shooting those to make sure they look the same, feel the same. And the value to somebody like Toast is instead of having to reach out to a partner in every city and trying to like
Sure.
hoping it's going to work out, hoping they get served well. Because that's the unfortunate thing about the production business and the agency business overall is a lot of people do not follow through and a lot of people
Oh
do
yeah.
not provide good service. And so in that regard, it's honestly easy, somewhat easy to start and do well because if you just do what you say you're going to do and do it well, you'll win. But
Yeah.
so it's a lot of stuff like that where we find a client and they have stories all over the country and they need one team they can trust to go execute on it for them and take the stress off of them. That's kind of why. And we also have a few like industry specific things that we're really good at that kind of take us all over to wherever the story is.
Mhm.
And then part of our business model is to like we're able to travel, even with travel included. We're usually typically cheaper or the same price as competitors of similar quality. And so there's the benefit that they can send us all around and have one team that's doing it all and put that all under one
Yeah.
contract, as opposed to having to dig in every city they have a story and find somebody and hope it all looks and feels the same.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And someone like Toast would be huge because they're everywhere. Uh,
Yep,
yeah. Cool. So
exactly.
you've talked a lot about story, and I'm a storyteller too. I do public speaking and
Nice.
such, and I love to tell stories. So what's in your mind when you think of story? What's the key components? What makes a good story?
I think it has to be authentic to the human experience. And that's why I'll always believe like people will say, are you afraid of AI, coming in, people making AI ads? It's going to hurt the industry a little bit, but my answer for us is no, I'm not. Because people, since the beginning of time, story has been the most impactful means of communication. And I heard somebody say recently, that, like nobody will make a difficult decision unless they've heard the story of somebody else who has made that decision and how it's affected them. Like we are wired to learn through story. And
Yeah.
so I think what makes a good story is it has to be authentic. I think if you're faking it, or if you have somebody that doesn't know how to capture authenticity, like in an interview, you can feel it, right? So we
Yeah.
say all the time, part of what makes our videos feel so good is our directors are really good at conducting the interviews in a conversational format. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times our talent doesn't even really know when the interview starts and they don't really know when it ends.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're just kind of sit down and you're chit chatting, and all of a sudden, like we're rolling and we're going, and they're just talking to a person because you can feel the
Right.
difference when somebody's talking to a camera versus when they're talking to a person. There's the body language, the twinkle in the eye, right? All of that
Sure.
sort of stuff. And people are going to try to act when they're talking to camera or they think they're performing. They're going to try to act how they think they should versus how they really are. And one of
Yeah.
our teams, it's not me, it's the production teams and the editors, one of their unique geniuses is just really being able to like understand the vibe and the energy and the feel of a place and recreate that with the music, the way they cut, the way they do the interview, the way the story weaves together. And so the best compliment we get is like when we make a video for somebody and they're like, you really just like captured our essence. And
Yeah.
like you really got us. Like it feels like us. So I think if you want to tell a good story, you have to be authentic. I would really discourage people from trying to recite lines or trying to fake something that they're not. And a lot of
Right.
people, they're like, we work with a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of companies that are like, quote unquote, not sexy.
Yeah.
And they see their video and they're like, you made this look so cool. And it's like, because what you do, what every single human is infinitely interesting if you ask the right questions.
Sure.
And same thing with scenery. Like you can make an empty, grimy warehouse look really cool and beautiful if you just embrace that that's what it is and like kind of the
Mm.
romance of it. And that's
Mm.
something our team's really good at. So I think long-winded way of saying like you have to be authentic and
Yeah.
you have to be authentic in the story you're trying to tell as the company that's telling it. And then you also have to have somebody who knows how to capture that and relay it.
Yeah. I like how one of the first things you said there was about um, people want to hear from others who have been down that, that journey. I remember when I started my business, I was talking to different people. When I talked to someone who had never owned a business, they would be like, "Are you nuts? Are you crazy?"
Mhm.
And one of my friends who's a business owner said, "John, don't ever ask for directions from someone who hasn't been where you're going." And
Yes.
that's kind of along those lines of you want to experience, you want to talk to people who have experienced it, and stories in your
Yep.
videos are a way of telling that.
100%. You think about like what does everybody say the most powerful form of business growth is? It's word of mouth referral.
Oh, absolutely.
And why is that? It's the same thing we're just talking about. It's because somebody has a story personally of their issue and then how this thing's or company product solved it.
Yeah.
And the person hearing it hears it and sees it from another person. So it's powerful. And I think the only other thing I would add to what makes a good story is I think it really has to be authentic, and it has to be told with quality. I think that you can do short form stuff with like iPhone, stuff that's meant to be there today and gone tomorrow. But if you're doing anything that's brand centric, it should have the same quality that your product represents. And so if
Mhm.
you're a lower ticket, lower quality thing, you can get away with lower quality content. But if you're a premium brand, your content needs to feel premium as well. So there is a little bit of a look and feel component to it as well. But the other big thing is it has to be authentic. The quality has to match your product. And then I think one of the absolute like most important pieces of the puzzle is the authenticity, the quality, the feeling of it, and the use, how you're going to use it is super important as well. Like knowing the specific purpose and then making the content for that specific purpose is also a big thing because different
Yeah,
platforms do want different things. And it does feel a
sure.
little bit inauthentic if you put something that's clearly made for YouTube just up on Instagram. But the other thing is emotion. Like I think the thing that brings it home, I think if you could only pick two things, it would be authenticity and emotion. Like you have to get to the underlying archetypal, like human emotional element behind it. People don't connect with companies, they connect with people. And
Yeah.
so like, hey, you're John, you do like coaching, you do X, Y, and Z, here are my services. That's cool. But what's a lot cooler is why do you do it? Like, what is the
Yeah.
story of what got you into it and what keeps you going
100%.
at it? People connect to people. And so
Yeah.
that's the other trap is like, don't get caught up just talking about the product or service and like being a sales robot. Like really
Yeah.
talk about the why, the human, like what's a feeling that every human can connect with.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I sometimes tell people, especially when I'm talking to them about their marketing strategies and such, not that I'm not a marketing expert, but I've learned a few things. And part of it is that is like you will succeed more with marketing things that are just like I said, telling a story about something or just sharing some emotion. I always say one of my most successful marketing campaigns was a Thanksgiving email that I sent out several years ago that generated just tens of thousands of dollars of work from just it was just a happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for you. Here's what we're thankful for. And it was just one of those typical cheesy kind of Thanksgiving messages that it resonated. It resonated with two or three people who hired me right after that.
Yep.
So
Love it.
that's cool. Well, so you talked a little bit about the first 18 months or whatever was kind of scary at times, but uh, let's kind of I always try to have a learning because hey, this business ownership stuff isn't for the timid, it isn't for the weak. And so what was a challenge or something you guys had to overcome either early on or more recently? Um, Anything you can share?
Ugh, yeah. It's been a lot of challenges, especially over the past few years. One big thing, big thing that I learned is you have to be careful about hiring really good people who are going to be good for the culture if they're not a good fit for the industry. Because for a long time, we scaled by just hiring really good people that we knew would fit in and that were awesome humans. And that's great for culture. We had an amazing culture for a very long time, still do have a good culture. Um, but when you hire somebody who's really not meant for the industry and everybody on the team loves them and you know that it's a square peg in a round hole,
Mhm.
eventually that person will leave and it will hurt your culture because you have somebody, and we've had this with multiple people, that everybody loves them. They're great people and like they're really fun to be around. They really lift up the mood of the office, but it was just never really a fit with the industry. And
Hmm.
eventually they move on. And when they move on, it leaves a gap because you've brought
Yeah.
it up to here and then they leave and it's gone. So I think that was one thing that I learned. You have to be careful because you get really excited as a founder and as a CEO to think about this person being on the team and how it'll lift everybody else up and how much everybody will love them and what it'll do to the work environment. And you can like make an argument to ignore that, like, oh, we'll just teach them the skills, and they'll learn that.
Well,
And
we often say that, right? I mean, we often say hire for culture, and train for,
yep.
for skills. But
And I think that's true. I think that the caveat I would add is like make sure that this person's values and this person's interests are still aligned with the industry.
yeah, that was the one thing you used a phrase there that I don't think I've ever heard anybody say before, that it's important for them to align with the industry. So how if you kind of share what was an example of someone who didn't fit with the industry? Was it
Yeah, so
travel or was it,
exactly. Yeah, we had one amazing person. His name was Danny Legalski, and I'll shout him out here. And everybody he meets, I was having a cigar with a buddy who works a lot with us last night, and he was just like, "There's nobody I'd rather spend time with than Danny." And that's just who he is. He's a very holy guy. He takes his faith seriously, but he's just also very strong, very confident, very competent, a very natural leader, very others focused. Just like everybody loves him. Everybody loves
Mhm.
Danny. I got more compliments about Danny on our team than, anybody else. We get a lot of compliments about our people. And so, but he takes his family very seriously. And the job he was in, required a lot of travel, and that was difficult. And that's something that we kind of knew would be a challenge from the get go. But we kind of overlooked it and we're like, well, we'll keep a tab on it and all this. And, I
Yeah.
think also he was looking forward to the opportunity and maybe, we didn't talk about that enough. But then at the end of the day, like Danny's kind of a blue collar guy. Like he likes to work with his hands. He likes the construction industry,
Mm.
and he's not really like one for he was never really that interested in the creative agency world, right? And
Yeah.
the thing about our business, especially, is if you were to ask a lot of the people in the room here, like, when did you first get interested in video? It's like, since when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Like, it really is a calling type of industry because it's hard work and it's
Yeah.
very taxing. And he didn't have that, right? So it's like, he's like, yeah, for me, I think I could, like, he's like, I really like the team. I'm not really that interested in the work or like the creative, but it's an awesome team and it's a good opportunity. So, but eventually that weighed on him. He wanted to work with his hands and he wanted to be home with
Sure.
his family. He didn't want to travel. And that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. When you have 4 kids and you take your family seriously, it's hard to get away. It's hard on your wife. And so it didn't inevitably, it didn't work out. But, whenever he left, it was a very sad day for the company. And can still feel the hole that it left, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a definitely a hard learned lesson that I didn't expect, was like, you got to be careful hiring amazing people if they're not a right fit for the industry.
Wow.
And there's
That's
there's
actually
a ton more lessons, but
any other top ones you'd want to share? That was really good. That was unique. I haven't heard anybody say it quite that way.
yeah, that's a good one that's just been top of mind. Another one is, it's actually an Alex Hormozy quote, but it's been really, really true. And the quote says, "The magic you're looking for lies in the work that you're avoiding." And that has just been proven to me, especially over this past few weeks, to just be absolutely true. And
Can you
so
expound on that? What's the magic you're looking for?
lies in the work that you're
Like,
avoiding.
okay.
And so
So
it kind of
it's
comes,
about, you have to do the hard stuff if you're gonna.
yeah, well, it's like, if you think about, even for your business now, I know for mine, like when I started thinking about like, what's the magic I want? Like if I could wave a magic wand, like
Yeah.
whether it's culture, or whether it's lead generation, or whether it's processes being more buttoned up. It's like, whatever that thing that's nagging me in the back of my mind that like I wish I could fix, or I had a magic fairy or a magic hire that could fix. That's, if you just lean in and do that work, even if you don't want to, even if it seems overwhelming, that magic happens. And so
Yeah.
I know for me, I can definitely get caught in the trap of, man, I wish we had like stable lead generation. Like, oh, like what's the perfect marketing player, the perfect platform, and the perfect marketing hire, or what book can I read? And it's just like, you're looking for magic, right? You're looking for that fix it,
Right.
instead of just, I'm going to write a LinkedIn post a day. I'm going to do outreach. I'm going to start posting on social media. I'm going to make sure our website's updated. Like just leaning in and actually doing things, even if they're not the perfect thing,
Mhm.
will solve the problem, rather than
Yeah.
ignoring it, letting it grow, and then looking
Yeah.
all over for the magic solution, right?
Oh yeah. It's like kind of like that eat that frog concept, right? It's like that hardest thing you have to do. Just if you start doing it, other things naturally happen. But you got
Yep,
to sometimes just
100%.
rip the band-aid off, whatever euphemism you want to use. Just and start doing it, and it's amazing what suddenly you'll get done. I'll get in my head. I'll feel like, oh, I got so much stuff to do, so much stuff to do. So, and I start kind of freaking, and it's like, I actually just sit down and do the first thing. That's one thing off the list. The next thing you know, I've done 7 things,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
find
So
that.
yeah, so that's been a big lesson. I think the other biggest lesson I would tell anybody who's thinking about starting a business is something I got from Rich Dad Poor Dad very early on. I was fortunate to read that as soon as I was starting the business.
Yeah, that's
And
a
it's the
good
idea,
book, especially,
it's a
especially for people
very
starting up.
it's a very good book, but the idea of pay yourself first.
Yeah.
I think too many people start a business and they don't take a salary, or they're not paying themselves. And you hear all these stories of like, I didn't pay myself for 2 years. It's like, good luck with that. Like,
Yeah.
good luck with that. Not many people can do it. And I also think that you're lying to yourself about your business if you do that, because
Yeah.
you're doing a ton of work. And if you want a business and not a job, and you're doing a ton of work for free, and your business couldn't afford somebody else to do that work, if you disappear, you don't have a business, because you can't
Right.
afford to hire somebody else to replace you. And so I
Yeah.
think like paying yourself first and making sure that you're in a spot where you can continue, because you're the only one that's going to keep pushing no matter what. Like if you're not paying yourself, and you're doing work and you're hitting margins, you're not really hitting margins, because you're not accounting for the CEO, founder, or somebody
Yeah.
driving the business. Like if you died tomorrow, what would it take to replace you, and pay yourself that? And
Yeah.
if it's not working at that market rate, you have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And I always ask at the end, what advice do you have for someone starting up? And you've given it, so I don't have to ask that question. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's so true. And when I'm talking to a prospect, if they tell me, and they're not always going to tell me this, but if they tell me they're not paying themselves, or they're paying themselves substandard type wages, I usually will walk away. I usually just say, what, come back and talk to me when you're actually paying yourself more, because it's not right for you not to pay yourself, but you're going to pay me.
Yep.
That's usually not the recipe for a good relationship, or a
Agreed.
successful business.
Yep. Agreed. And I think if I could leave a potential entrepreneur with any other advice for what it's worth, I would say read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell and follow that to a T as you're starting your business. That would be one thing. The second thing would be learn sales.
Yeah.
And I would say if you want to be an entrepreneur, it might be a good move to just go find whatever company near you has the best sales organization and just learn to sell really well, because
Yeah.
revenue fixes all problems. It's a lot easier to solve problems with money than it is to solve money problems. So if you can sell, you can hire people to deliver, you can build systems, you can pay for contractors. You need a business to have a business, you have to have sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've known several, especially in the tech world, they think, well, I'm going to create a product, someone else will sell it for me. And you've got to be able to sell, because only you have that passion. Only you really can tell the story, right? It takes that.
And
That's beautiful.
It is. Some of the best businesses I know of personally are businesses that hang on a second, somebody is calling my Google line, and I don't know if you can hear that, but it's driving
No, I
me
didn't. We can cut that out.
absolutely awesome. Yeah, we'll cut this part. Sorry about that. All right, let me come back to you, and we'll cut back here. But some of the best businesses that I know of were the opposite of that, where it was really good sales guys who then said, what can we sell that makes us money while we eat, makes us money while we play golf, makes us money while we sleep, etc. And then they pick a business model like insurance or credit card processing or SaaS or something else that's very reoccurring where you build it and it sells, right? I didn't do
Yeah.
that. I kind of wish I would have at times. I love this business. I love storytelling, but from the
Yeah.
just strictly the business side of it. So I think, in fact, it's probably a better way to start a business than it is to just pick a product and not build a product and not know how to sell it.
Right. Right. Well, excellent. You have given us a lot of great words of wisdom, several good quotables in here. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with my audience. Appreciate your time. And if people want to find out more about you guys, maybe somebody needs a video shot anywhere in the country, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can email me. I'm just kyle@cumberlandcreative.co. And yeah, if you have any questions about storytelling, video production, or digital marketing, SEO, PPC, anything you need to drive revenue, give us a holler. If we can help, we'll help. If not, we'll point you in the right direction.
Cool. Well, thank you again for your time today, Kyle.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.